Do you guys remember the first Keanu Reeves movie you ever watched? I was introduced to him by my dad in my early years, most notably with The Matrix. Now, watching The Matrix at a young age completely altered my brain chemistry forever. I picked up everything and anything I could about The Matrix. Graphic novels, DVDs, merch, and games. I was obsessed. But then I saw the sequels, and I doubled down again, consumed as much behind the scenes content from the DVDs, reread my books, replayed the games, and watched countless YouTube videos explaining the sequels because I was a little dum-dum. However, as much as I love these movies, and yes, even the sequels, you cannot tell me this shit is not cool. This is not what I associate Keanu Reeves with. For me, his staple role is John Wick. I know this is factually wrong, but hear me out. The first John Wick came out when I was 11. I was riding the coattails of The Matrix, so when John Wick came out, I acted like a parasite, leeching myself to the coolest thing I could find next from Mr. Reeves. The first John Wick came out in 2014, and it follows a legendary hitman who's thrust back into the criminal underworld after Russian mobsters assault him, kill his puppy that was his last remaining gift from his wife, and steal his car. A very basic premise, but it's this very simplicity that gives these series of movies such leeway to explore and find their fullest potential. These movies are so creative with their fighting, their world building, and their ambition. These movies constantly one up another, not just through fighting set pieces, but by production design, and most notably choreography and cinematography. Compare the scene from John Wick 1.
How much?
Excuse me?
How much for the car?
She's not for sale.
To this scene from John Wick 4.
ついに君の安らぎを見つけたのか。
Now, yes, budget does play a role here, but it also shows these movies care about the art of film by investing heavily in these departments, and it shows maturity and experience by director Chad Stahelski. Even with today's standards, $100 million is not that much for an action blockbuster. However, despite my love for these films, I do think some are better than others. So let's rank them. Number 4, John Wick Chapter 3.
I trust you understand the repercussions if he survives.
John Wick, excommunicado, is now in effect.
Now, John Wick 3 starts off directly after the ending of John Wick 2. No, literally, it takes place like 5 minutes after the second one finishes. Now, this one probably has my favorite opening out of the entire quadrilogy. The ticking clock until his bounty goes off, the denial and services he'll be permanently cut off from, and having him already bleeding out is a very clever touch. It makes the scene much more interesting. The fight scenes are spectacular, especially this library scene and this scene. But unfortunately for me, this movie just completely plummets after the opening 20 minutes. I praise these movies for world building, but I'm going to backtrack here for a bit. World building has to be engaging. In the other films, world building was sprinkled the rules, the mutual agreement on continental grounds, but it was never the main focus. In Chapter 3, it feels like the filmmakers noticed how much we were praising their slow, methodical approach and decided to double down on it. This one also feels less grounded and more fantastical than the other three. I know that's an insane take considering he does this in the fourth one. I don't think it's a bad film, I do like it, but I think there's a significant gap between this one and the other ones. Number 3, John Wick Chapter 2.
How many buttons?
2.
And what style?
Tactical.
Now, it pains me to put this one here because John Wick 2 is so raw, but I think I like the other ones just a bit more. John Wick 2 is a sequel done right. It elevates the character, the world, the set pieces, all without compromising what made the first film a success. For the sequel, David Leitch didn't return, leaving the entire film franchise in Chad Stahelski's hands, and Stahelski did an incredible job. His direction feels much more focused and elevated compared to the first one. The story is just as tight and simple as before, and we would soon learn how much he would mature over the next 2 films. Number 2, John Wick.
Daisy.
A movie I look back on fondly. The nightclub scene had me curling my toes in excitement, and all the martial arts displayed in this movie made me sign up for Taekwondo, which was a mistake because my 11-year-old scrawny ass got my ass kicked my first day, and I ended up leaving the dojo with a bloody nose. And, as one would do naturally after getting their ass kicked, I fought back. I fought to get my membership canceled that same day, but the point still stands. This shit made me want to become John Wick. I think it's also right that I shout out the sound team for this one. The sound design is pretty electric, bullets sound loud enough to damage your eardrums, blood effects sound great, and every punch feels grounded. It also helps that the stunt team was great, and the directors, both having worked in the stunt industry, knew how to handle the action set pieces. Number 1. John Wick Chapter 4.
Maybe I'm wrong.
You're going to die.
Maybe not.
The perfect ending to an almost perfect trilogy. The grandiose scope of this movie is a culmination of 3 great films. Whether they planned for this in advance or not, it does not matter. This was my endgame of 2023. This is John Wick 3, just done better. The stakes are high, and even though John survives all of this, there's still uncertainty if he'll actually make it out alive. Stahelski and his team crafted action sequences that balance raw urgency with breathtaking choreography. The extended gun-fu shootouts between John and waves of enemies never feel repetitive thanks to the film's relentless momentum and inventive staging. But what elevates this movie to peak levels is this moment right here. The long take overhead shot with the original soundtrack from the original nightclub scene had me grinning from ear to ear. Bill Skarsgård is always a welcome addition to any production, as well as Donnie Yen, who was great. This time around, Stahelski's direction felt much more confident. His experience from the previous 3 films really shines here, and the cinematography was gorgeous, especially the scenes in Japan. Keanu Reeves' nonchalant, stoic delivery is comical.
I'm going to need a gun.
But it works. He is John Wick. He's here to take ass, not to give monologues. John Wick Chapter 4 is a fantastic movie with great visuals, confident directing, and a heartfelt ending to a series of movies no one would have thought would amount to anything.